Well, and actually, just before we move into our village council here, we kind of did the YouTube video on it, but the reaction to Thom Merrilin's, what do you call it, a guitar, right? Is that what it is?
It's a guitar. I've seen some people be actually quite upset that it's actually a guitar, because in the book it's not a guitar, but they said, yeah, they know what they're doing. Okay, I mean,
they know what they're doing. Yeah, they do, and I think it's great. And again, that was the whole thing. The whole Q&A that Rafe provided afterwards, as you said earlier, was to kind of say, hey, we're going to have to make some changes. We're going to have to adapt some stuff. And you're right. He did kind of confirm that Elaine is probably not going to be in it this season. And he asked he kind of posed a really good question. And I want anyone who's a veteran reader or is maybe a little bit upset with some of these adaptations to think about. He listed off the let's say there's 10 locations or whatever, and you have a budget in which you can only do 4. Which 4 do you pick? And then from that, it's like, okay, now you have to build your story inside of those set locations. So start to think about it like that, and then you start to understand why a lot of this is going to have to be different. And I thought that was good for fans to understand that and see that and get where he's coming from. So the creators of this are putting so much work into it. And that's, I love that, we're getting to kind of see their passion. Oh my God, the Yellow Aja comment about the sister, right? The naming Chesmol, right, as one of the, I was like, oh my God, there was a couple F-bombs dropped in that conversation, just because they're so passionate about every name that's given to a character, who they are, what the designing of the sword and the dagger for Egwene and everything. They're putting a lot of time and effort into it, and I appreciate seeing that. I like seeing that.
Yeah,
it makes me feel
good. I liked what he said too about they're saying, he's like, obviously it's just impossible to be able to cover every character that's going to be in this. It's just impossible to cover every character. So I like what they said, where basically there's going to be named extras, right? And so it's just going to be a cool kind of tie-in to some of these smaller characters. One that you and I have talked about that we've already covered would be somebody like Huron, right? Like maybe Huron is a character who we don't see. We're not saying we're not going to, or that he's not unnecessary. Or anything like that, but we're just trying to think of characters who could potentially be cut, and that's one that we kind of came up with. So maybe you do see somebody because I do think we'll have to say, I think you have to say Inktar. I think you'll see him.
Yeah.
And so maybe you have Huron is there with him or something, but they don't specifically say this is Huron and here's his story and he does a bunch of stuff or whatever. Maybe it's just a band of them and then they're named.
Yeah, and one of the things too is if this individual has a lot of speaking and acting roles that they're going to be a pretty big deal, you don't want to. This was interesting as far as Thom Merrilin's character and bringing in a really good actor. You're not going to bring him in for 1 to 2 episodes. You're not going to get a high quality actor to come and buy into that and say, I'm only there for 1 episode, but then don't worry, season 2 and 3 and 4, you're going to be in this thing for a long time. No, we need to write this in a way that's gonna, where we're gonna see a lot more of Tom. And so I thought that was interesting. That's why they had to say, look, we're not gonna cast Elaine for a one little scene where we're in Camelin. We're gonna hold on for a second, and we might be able to, because you want to attract really good talent for this. So that was cool. I thought that was really, because people have to want to be in these things. They can't just go out and say, hey, we want this person, that person. Those actors get to kind of decide what they want to be involved in. And you got to think about it from their perspective too. If it's just, I'm coming in for this one thing, it might be a wash. It might not work out. I don't know anything about Wheel of Time. So they've got to, on their end, Amazon and the showrunners got to sell this to really good actors and say, I want you, or let's get a lot of people to audition for this role. So they do have to change that a little bit. We want the best. We want the best in there.
Yeah. So. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we'll see. I think that's really the most telling stuff is what he is saying in response to some of these questions. And one of the things you and I talked about is, does Tom die? In season 1, and I think we were both kind of saying no. I don't think he does. So,
yeah. Or they're gonna. I have no idea how they're gonna pull that.
I think he could get injured.
Yeah,
but I don't even think I don't even think we're gonna lose him.
They could even, yeah, right. That's true. That could be the case as well. And it could even be something like a part of how they structure season 1. At the end of it, you could move some of his sacrifice, just move it to the end. Maybe he sacrifices himself. Maybe he's with Moiraine and all of them at the Eye of the World, and he does something to help take down a Murdraw or Forsaken or distract them or something to help Moiraine and Rand move further away. And we're like, what the hell happened to Tom? And so then, we have to speculate for a year while season 2 comes out. They could do something like that for sure. People are going to be a little bit wound up about it, but that's okay. I think I just will always remind people that, like, we've talked about this for so long, and I know all these other content creators and fans have talked about Wheel of Time. Could it ever? Is it possible? And I used to say no. I used to say no way. There's no way they're going to be able to do a movie. I never even really thought TV show, and then when TV show comes along, I'm thinking, I don't know how many seasons, 14 seasons of a TV, and then I'm like, no, you got to think differently. And it took someone like Rafe saying, I can think outside the box. I love this stuff, and I know how we can kind of weave this together. And yeah, tough decisions are going to be made.
You have to think about it as I really like the question he answered where he's saying, look, we're going to have to attack this TV show. How do I tell, it's like at the end of the day, if I tell you part of the story here and another part of it here, and I kind of move some things around at the end of it, did you get the gist of the series?
Yeah.
Yes. Just because it was told to us in one way doesn't mean that that's the only way to tell it.
Right. Exactly. Where you introduce characters, where you weave them in and out, etc. You're 100% right. You still get the full story. You still get that experience. Maybe not in the exact sequence of events that we were used to it originally, but that's okay. That's all right. And we saw how successful it was in Game of Thrones. They did the same sort of thing. They had to move some pieces around, and it worked out just fine. So, excluding season 8.
Well, yeah.
Just kidding. But
they had to make up.
They had to make that story up.
It was different. It was different than here, where it's just telling a story that's already been told.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, hey. Perfect. I always love discussing the show just a little bit, and great way to kind of start the new year off here. So